Some Christian fundamentalists and Orthodox Jews are claiming that Jimmy Carter's cancer is divine punishment for his treatment of Israel. Mediaite reports on this, quote, apparently there are enough Orthodox Jews and Christians claiming that former President Jimmy Carter's cancer is a divine punishment from God to warrant an influential rabbi to respond. So according to the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, Rabbi Benjamin Blech wrote a post concerning the matter for the website Aish. He said, quote, there are those already proclaiming with prophetic certainty that Jimmy Carter is being punished by God for his sins against Israel and the Jewish people. And with that smug analysis of heavenly justice, these false prophets have unwittingly besmirched millions of righteous and God-fearing people who similarly find themselves suffering from incurable diseases and facing painful deaths. So you know how people always talk about, oh, politicizing a tragedy, politicizing this, politicizing that? Well, most of the time people bring that up, it's a ridiculous thing to bring up because oftentimes you have political solutions to real-world problems. So to politicize it actually makes sense because you're trying to prevent a problem from occurring in the future. But in this case, we're talking about people politicizing a death when there's no rational basis for it, there's no possible solutions. All they want to do is blame the poor guy who has cancer for something he should not be blamed for, by any stretch of the imagination. Now, why are fundamentalists so angry about this? Well, Jimmy Carter's record on Israel is actually really interesting. So he got peace between Israel and Egypt, which is fucking amazing. That peace has held to today. And he's upset about the occupation. Now, he's spoken about this before. I'll give you just one quote, something he said that got under the skin of the far right. One of the greatest human rights crimes on earth is the starvation and imprisonment of 1.6 million Palestinians. So because President Carter dares to say, hey, let's try to solve this problem right now, let's try to acknowledge what's happening and fix it, he's smeared by the far right as, well, you're, an anti-Semite, you're against Israel, you're a bad person, and, oh yeah, your cancer came from God. The hilarious thing about all of this is they view President Carter as the extremist. Yeah, the guy who's been fighting for peace this whole time. That guy's the extremist. And then meanwhile, in classic far right-wing fashion, they just make shit up. See, it's so easy to be a fundamentalist right-winger, whether it's an ultra-Orthodox Jew, whether it's a Christian fundamentalist, whether it's an Islamist or a fundamentalist Muslim. Because you don't need facts. You don't need information. You don't need data. You just need to smear the other side and be as big of a dick as possible and say shit like, I'm happy you got cancer, and you got cancer because you dared to push for peace in the Middle East. By the way, if God, let's say, really gave cancer to people for doing what Jimmy Carter has done, well then fuck that God. That God can blow me and play with these nuts, okay? Because that's not a God that's worthy of worship. You got peace between Israel and Egypt, and you actually care about getting peace moving forward to get a two-state solution. Fuck you, you deserve cancer. Really? There aren't other people who exist around the world who've done actual crimes and they don't care about peace who would deserve cancer first? Hey, God, what's up with that, man? So let me get this straight. You got war criminals. Al-Baghdadi is still walking around right now. No cancer. But Jimmy Carter, he deserves cancer. There are children with leukemia, children dying of cancer, children dying of all types of diseases. Extreme poverty exists in the world. The list goes on and on. God says, give all the good people some fucked up shit, and the bad people, Jimmy Carter gets cancer. George W. Bush is in his room right now painting pictures of Scooby-Doo. Where's the justice from that God? There is no justice from that God. That God is made up, and you're a hateful bigot for even pretending like God would give a guy like Jimmy Carter cancer.